Hey guys, today we'll be doing the last part of the Mistborn Era 2, which actually has finished already, but I have decided to add secret history to it, and also, after some deliberation with myself, I've decided to add the 11th metal to it. The 11th metal and the secret history are both featured in this Arcanum Unbounded. I haven't read any of the other stories yet because I have yet to read both Elantris and Warbreaker. But yeah, the 11th metal is something very small. I think it was originally published as a piece of fiction for a board game about Mistborn, and it's actually a kind of prequel to Mistborn Era 1. Because it acts as an introduction to Kelsier and how we all know how he got his Mistborn powers, but we also have never seen him train with Gemel or whatever his name is. So here we see an essential part of his training in the 11th metal, and also the planting of the seed, the budding of the seed of his Scar Rebellion, of his actual plan that he will execute in Mistborn Era 1. In Secret History, however, we see what happens after Kelsier dies at the end of the first book, The Final Empire. I chose to read this because we all know that at the end of the Bands of Mourning, in Secret History, we learned that Kelsier was actually alive and that he was the sovereign of the southern Scadrial people. Mostly due to the fact that we know now that he has survived, in a sense, as he always does. We start the book after his actual death, in which he meets with, what's his name again? Preservation, but he gives him the name Fuzz, as in one of his crew members. Afterwards, after he befriends God himself, Preservation himself, and gives him the nickname of Fuzz, he returns to Scadrial from the Beyond, because he has passed on to, I think he was in the cognitive realm before actually passing on to the Beyond. But he decided to turn back, so he went to the Well of Ascension, and he discovers ruin there beneath the actual well. When he discovers what ruin is going to do, destroying the world and all that, he actually sets out to do everything that he can to help Vin destroy Ruin and thus save the world. When at the end of the Well of Ascension, the second book, we all know that Vin arrives at the well to destroy Ruin, but in a sense she actually frees him. But now that we have seen this from the perspective of Kelsier, we also know that Vin not only released Ruin, but also released Kelsier from that well. Even though Kelsier had no way of contacting her because, he was trapped as a cognitive shadow, as in Shadowsmar in Stormlight Archive. But he didn't get through to her, but he did get released. And when he asks Preservation or Fuzz, who we see, by the way, deteriorating at a rapid pace, when we see Kelsier asking Preservation to destroy Ruin, or at least help Kelsier in destroying Ruin, he says, "No, I can't. I am Preservation. I cannot destroy." But Preservation tells him to head out across the ocean for help, at which point Kelsier doesn't know yet that he has been sent out to the south. The south of Scadrial, where the people have advanced without actual interference from Preservation or Ruin or any other shard for that matter. But during his travels, he has to travel to the Ire, which apparently is this group from Elantris, or a group of Elantrians. I haven't read that book yet, so I will probably read that somewhere. I don't know, it will probably be during summer because I have a huge to-be-read list at the moment. But across the way, Kelsier discovers that his allomancy doesn't work anymore. Of course, well, being dead, he has no actual metals to burn, so it does kind of make sense. But he can will something, in the sense he sees Chris from Taldane, you know, from the White Sand novels. He sees her and her friend Nas, or Nash, I think it's Nas, from Threnody, which is also featured in here apparently. I still have to read it in its entirety, but he sees them just having this log fire and touching them, and it just folds in on itself, and he takes it away. And he actually tries to replicate that a few times, but he gets it to work eventually, which is something that might be akin to soul casting, in the sense that it's both something that is to do with will, but that will probably be answered in either Mistborn Era 3 and 4 or in the further Stormlight Archive books, so that's something for later. Meeting both with Chris and Naz also helps Kelsier, in a sense that he gets a bit of explanations, because Chris and Naz have or are scholars of the Cosmere, and they are trying to find what's going on, I think, or trying to make out what's going on. And they inform Kelsier of stuff that's going on in the Cosmere, so he actually gets this sense of enlightenment, I think, knowing that Scadrial is not alone, that there are multiple worlds with multiple gods and different magic systems and stuff like that, and a lot of powers and a lot of different kinds of humans as well, which will probably have evolved in a different way, considering they all have different kinds of investiture. But again, he gets influenced by Ruin, or at least Ruin tries to influence him in giving up. But you know, we all know Kelsier, of course, and Kelsier just survives and he keeps on going. And when he finds the Ire, the group of Elantrians, or the Irie, I don't know how it's pronounced exactly, but he finds a way to infiltrate their fortress in Shadowsmar, in the cognitive realm, and steal this device that apparently gives people the power to hold a shard, which is something that for Kelsier, you know, and his gimmick of survival is of course something that is very important, or at least seems very important to him. After infiltrating that fortress, Kelsier returns to Luthadel, finding it in chaos. You know, we all know what happens in Era 1 of Mistborn, and he gets sent to Phaedrex, the city of what's his name again? Lord Yeoman is, which will actually be besieged by Ellen Venture in later books. And he goes there trying to find Vin, but he's unable to contact her again, partly due to Ruin as well, because Ruin is trying to, or is not trying, is actively keeping Kelsier away with his power, because we know that Vin can be influenced through her earring by Ruin. And along the way, we know that, but Kelsier also learns that. He learns a bit about hemalurgy, and how hemalurgy and spikes give Ruin the power over people that have been spiked, which is something that will come in very handy for him later. Then we fast forward a few months or weeks or years, I don't know, time goes differently in the cognitive realm, but I can't remember the exact time frames between books 1, 2 and 3 of Mistborn Era 1. But we see Kelsier realizing that preservation is dying, and he smashes that device he found in the Ire, giving him the power to actually hold the shard of preservation. Before dying, Fuzz, aka Preservation, gives Kelsier one last piece of instructions or advice, which is to survive, something that is inherent to Kelsier, of course, so for him it's not that difficult. He tries to fight Ruin, but he is unsuccessful. He gets not really defeated, but he doesn't win either. But it does cause him to run. He tries to find a place where Ruin's influence is not that big, and he finds it in Urto, one of the cities, and there happens to be Spook. You know, we all know Spook, the Tin Eyes, the savant. He has been spiked as well, unbeknownst to him, of course, with that part of that sword that went through a thug and then into his shoulder. I don't remember if it was left or right, but you know, he can now burn pewter, and it's spiked, of course, which causes him to be able to hear Ruin or to be influenced by Ruin. And we see that in the third book, The Hero of Ages, that Spook is influenced by Ruin, thinking it's Kelsier. But Kelsier actually releases then Spook of Ruin's influence by intervening and actually manifesting himself to Spook. Something which was only possible, of course, because he learned about hemalurgy at the end of the second book, I think. I don't know exactly the time frame anymore, but he learns about hemalurgy after he finds Vin in Phaedrix. I think that was the third book already. But yeah, then he tries to send a message, or not a message, but a messenger to Vin to tell her about the spikes, because, you know, Kelsier himself can't contact her, but he can contact people that have gone slightly insane. He has noticed that during his time as a cognitive shadow. The message, of course, fails because the messenger gets intercepted by Marsh, who actually reads aloud that message to Ruin. Of course, Ruin is immensely angry at this because he has been found out. Kelsier gives up hope initially, but when he thinks about it, he says that, okay, without his atium, Ruin's powers aren't perfect, so it's something like, it gives him hope. And one of the last chapters we see, is the moment where Vin's being tortured by Marsh, you know, to find the reserves of atium. At which point Marsh also rips out Vin's earring, which causes her to be free from Ruin's influence, not longer seeing her brother as well. Reen, I think was his name. And this allows her to get the power of preservation. Of course, that transfer of power from Kelsier to Vin was something very dangerous for Kelsier, being only a cognitive shadow. It almost kills him, but of course, being Kelsier, he manages to survive. Or rather, he refuses to die. And then he has to watch, which is a very painful scene actually. He has to watch as Vin sacrifices herself to destroy Ruin. In the meantime, Elend has also been killed, which was actually the tipping point, let's say, for Vin to decide to take up preservation. And we see both of them dead, entering the cognitive realm and having this beautiful conversation with both Kelsier and Sazed. With Kelsier, and then they both watch Sazed along with Kelsier while he takes up both the shards of preservation and Ruin, becoming the god Harmony, which we have seen, or who we have seen, of course, in all three of the books of Mistborn Era 2. He actually has quite a prominent role in them, and he is a very good character. He also has a role in Stormlight Archive, actually, not actively playing a part, but there is a letter from him written to, I think it was Hoyd, or about Hoyd, to someone else, and it was written by Harmony. So yeah, there's this small little Easter egg, so to speak, and continuity across the Cosmere. But let's get back to Scadrial for the moment. So Harmony has grabbed the power and become Harmony. So he is reorganizing the world as we know it. And after that reorganization, where we know a lot of different people have survived, Spook has become Mistborn. That was actually on the request of Kelsier, is something we learn now. And Spook can also see Kelsier now. I don't know exactly how it happened, but Spook is able to see Kelsier now. And together they set out to hemalurgically bind Kelsier's shadow back to a body. Hoping, well, it probably won't be his original body, but you know, the point is they want to get Kelsier, get a physical connection back. And of course, connection is something that has been mentioned a lot in the third book of Mistborn Era 2 in the Bands of Mourning. But yeah, so that's it so far for Secret History. Personally, after I've read that, his connection to hemalurgy, you know, and we see that he actually still has his scars, I don't think that it's the same body, because Kelsier's body will probably have deteriorated a lot by now. You know, probably to the point that it's decomposed in its entirety. But it probably does have to do with how the mind sees itself, because we know Stormlight heals everything in Stormlight Archives. And people that can Surge Bind can heal themselves, but only as they see themselves. So we know that Kaladin, or Kaladin, however you pronounce it, can heal himself, but he cannot heal his scars here, his Shush brand, you know, the brand that marks him as dangerous. So I think the scars that we see in on his arms at the end of Bands of Mourning is actually not his original body, but the manifestation of how he sees himself, you know, as the Lord of Scars. Which is probably, you know, the spike through his eye. Has he done that to a Mistborn body that has been killed? I don't know. Is it Spook, whose body he's taken over? We don't know. But I think this will all be answered in The Lost Metal or in Secret History 2 and 3, because Sanderson has actually told us that he might be writing Secret History 2, or maybe even 2 and 3, just so we can see what Kelsier has been up to in between Mistborn Era 1 and 2, because there's been 300 years. And it would actually make sense that it was Spook's body, because they said that he was their king, but also their god. And Kelsier, having been their god as he took up preservation, but also their king, as in it's Spook, because he was the king of Elendel for about 100 years, I think. On the other hand, the timelines don't match up, because, you know, when he was king, he actively should have been in Southern Scadrial while he was king. So it's something weird, it's something to think about, but I have really enjoyed Secret History, and it was something that actively made me get a very good picture of Kelsier, including the small 11th Metal novel, or novelette, because it was, I think it was only about 20 pages, I can't even remember. I think it was 15 to 20 pages, something like that. But it was something that I really enjoyed. These, give or take, 150 extra pages of Mistborn history. And I look forward to The Lost Metal now more than ever. And I hope you guys will too, because there will be a small, short trilogy review, maybe next week, maybe in a couple of weeks, I don't know, it depends on my schedule, it depends on how much I have to work as well, you know that. And I will try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, but there will probably be some minor spoilers as well. We'll see. I will probably see you guys then somewhere along next week or in 2 weeks. Mission accomplished. See you next time.